Welcome back to another episode of Swamp Stories. For this episode, we cover a random place that you've never heard of. But before we get into it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new. You can also follow the Instagram page as well. So let's get into it. Fresno, California. Definitely one of the strangest places you can ever go to. But in order for that to make sense, let me set the context. California is really 4 separate states. First, you have the top of California, which consists of Humboldt County, Mendocino, and a bunch of random places. All of that is pretty much Southern Oregon anyways. Then you have Northern California, which is the Bay Area, Sacramento, and all the way up to Lake Tahoe. And of course you have Southern California, which includes LA and San Diego. But in between Northern and Southern California, you have what's known as the Central Valley. It pretty much starts at Stockton and goes all the way down to Bakersfield. You might be thinking, okay, what's strange about that? So let me do my best to take you on a road trip from the Bay Area down to LA. As soon as you leave the Bay Area circle, you end up in Modesto, California. So you pull over to get gas, and here is what you see. Outside of the food mart is a tweaker on a stolen bike. He's covered in face tats and he's holding a 150-pound pit bull. Then you look to your right, and right there is a fool with a red bandana, extra large True Religion shorts, and a pair of DC skate shoes. Instantly, you feel like you're in an alternate universe and you want to escape as quickly as you can. So you stop pumping your gas right away and you leave with a half tank. You head down Highway 99 and you end up in Merced, California. You think, oh, it's a college town. Finally, I'm back in my comfort zone. So you pull up to another gas station and boom. Right there is the same tatted up tweaker with his pit bull. Then you look over to your right and the guy with the red bandana is standing right there as well. At this point, you question everything you've ever thought about California. First of all, why is it 96 degrees in February? And second of all, why does it smell like cow poop outside? Oh, and lastly, what happened to the Teslas, BMWs, Whole Foods, and vegan restaurants? So you look at Google Maps and finally you see a big city coming up on the map. Fresno, California. You're back in regular civilization, right? No, because as soon as you enter the city, you see everything you saw in Modesto, except this place has 600,000 people. That's bigger than Oakland, Sacramento, and Long Beach, except that no one ever thinks about, talks about, or ever considers moving to Fresno. I know I've made fun of San Bernardino and Stockton plenty of times, but Fresno may have taken their spot. So congratulations to San Bernardino, you finally accomplished something in life. But anyways, the reason Fresno grew so large is because of its great agriculture, and the city's entire economy depends on the fertility of the land. In good rain years, Fresno's economy will be booming, but during the droughts, everything comes crashing down. And because of this, Fresno has always been a tough blue-collar city. And when the economy is bad, many residents begin to make money in other ways. And we all know what this leads to: constant battles over markets and territory. And this is no exception, with all kinds of rivalries throughout the city. Fresno is the real deal. But before we get into it, let me run the intro. In order for this video to make sense, let's head all the way back to the start. 1968. This is the year when the infamous Norte started in California. So for those of you who don't know, this all started in prison. In most facilities, it's split between Northern and Southern California inmates. So back in the day, if you were from anything above Bakersfield, you were Norte. And on the other hand, if you were from anything below, you were SA. So by default, Fresno became a red city. But that's only because of geography, not because they really cared about the Northern California unity. But that makes sense, because in all honesty, they're more in the middle of the state than anything. But none of that mattered, because in the 1970s, more and more Southsiders began moving to Fresno. So in typical California fashion, red and blue became the theme of the 70s. And as a result, Fresno became possibly the most active city in the rivalry. All of this while other Northern California cities were not really getting their hands dirty. So after a while, Fresno felt like they were carrying too much of a load. And on top of this, they were being overlooked compared to Sacramento and the Bay Area. And here's the thing, Fresno was already iffy about being part of the Norte in the first place. And on top of this, we know how structured these groups are. You either follow the orders from the top dogs or you're next on their list. And Fresno was tired of taking orders from people who were not affected by the rivalry. And that takes us to the Valley State Correctional Facility. During the early 1980s, Fresno slowly started disassociating from the Nortes. And it started as simple as this: they only started hanging out with each other, and then they started calling themselves by a different name, F14, to represent Fresno first and then the 14, which represents Norte. Well, the top dogs were not pleased with Fresno distinguishing themselves, and they, after all, call all the shots. So they demand that Fresno stop referring to themselves as a separate group. Well, the Fresno guys did not care one bit, and by 1982 a new rivalry was officially on: F14 versus Nortes. However, all of this took place within the system, from Pelican Bay, Solano, Folsom, Soledad, and most importantly, Chowchilla. This rivalry was called the Red Wave, and it was just as bad as you can possibly imagine. Well, by 1986, F14 had expanded outside the facilities and onto the streets of Fresno. But at this point, the rivalry with the North had gotten so bad that they wanted complete independence. So F14 renamed themselves as the Bulldogs. This is because of Fresno State's football team. They definitely rushed this choice because Fresno Bulldogs does not sound intimidating one bit. Like, let's be honest, if somebody walks up to you and is like, "Yo, I'm a Fresno Bulldog," you'll probably laugh in his face. Well, in reality, it's the other way around, because these might be the most fearless dudes in California history. And trust me, you'll see why. The Bulldogs claim a lot of neighborhoods as their own, including Southside Fresno, Westside Fresno, Eastside Fresno, and everything east of Highway 41. They also claim a bunch of small tweaker towns in Fresno County as well. This includes Coalinga, San Joaquin, and Orange Cove. Well, early on, the Bulldogs had a major issue. They were all covered in tattoos of their rivals. Most importantly, they all had the number 14 on their body. Well, somehow a member realized that B is the second letter and D is the fourth, so members began turning the 1 into a 2 on their body. So if you ever see a guy with a funky looking 1-2 tattoo, chances are he's an original Bulldog. Okay, you might be thinking, if the Bulldogs cover the vast majority of Fresno, do they really run into problems? So let me break it down. By 1986, the Bulldogs had a lot on their plate. Firstly from the Nortes, who mostly cover the downtown and West Fresno area. Then from the constant influx of essays coming up from Southern California. And one thing about them is that they're not afraid to move right into your neighborhood. And for that reason, the Bulldogs always had to watch their back. And things would only get worse in 1990 when a new group of guys would migrate into Fresno. And that takes us down to Long Beach, where ABZ and Tiny Rascals began getting into a big rivalry. And because of this, many families moved out of Long Beach and up to Fresno. Which I understand wanting to leave their environment, but why Fresno of all places? Like, Fresno? Ew. Anyways, so hundreds of TRG began moving to Fresno, and of course, this caused problems with the Bulldogs. So TRG decided to join together with the Norte, and everything got messier. So between the Bulldogs, Norte, TRG, and Essays, hundreds and hundreds of events have taken place. However, I couldn't possibly cover every single event that has taken place. So instead, I'm going to cover the most important events that have taken place. So let me introduce you to Jesse Aguilar, also known as Big Paya. He is possibly the most infamous Bulldog of all time. He is a big old chunky dude, and you do not want to get in his way. Big Paya is the head of the Bulldog set from the Calwa neighborhood on the south side of Fresno. This is one of the most run down and infamous neighborhoods in the whole city. Well, his right hand man is Angel Vasquez, also known as Lil Paya. And oddly enough, their main rivals are also Bulldogs, located on Bond Street on the east side. And it all started on August 19th, 2013. Angel Vasquez leaves his apartment on West Swift Avenue. That's when he notices a Bond Street Bulldog right outside. Bam. This incident devastated Big Paya because Lil Paya was really his best friend and right-hand man. Well, after asking around, he finds out that it was ordered by a 58-year-old named Fernando Zapata, also known as Big Zap. So Big Paya waits on his opportunity. And that takes us to New Year's Eve 2013. Big Paya decides to attend a New Year's Eve party at a friend named Emilio's house, and in typical Bulldog fashion, he brings 10 to 15 members with him. Well, Paya ends up having a great time and stays the whole night throughout the morning, and that's when he gets the news that Fernando Zapata will be swinging by to make a purchase from Emilio. So Big Paya gets ready. 12:38 p.m. Fernando pulls up to Emilio's gate. With him is his son, Fernando Zapata Jr. They park the van and walk down the driveway. As soon as they get to the garage, right there is a sleepless Big Paya. Bang! After After the incident, no one would speak up for 2 months. But that's when a family member of Zapata would speak up and say that it was Big Paya who did it. So in March of 2014, he would go down and eventually get life. However, this would only make him more powerful within the Bulldogs. From his Salinas Valley cell, he began orchestrating everything, but that wouldn't take place for a few years. In the meantime, subsets of Bulldogs began taking sides with Big Paya's Kalwa Bulldogs, one of which are the College Ave Bulldogs, who are one of the most notable in the city. They have a young rapper named Faye300, and during his hood vlogs, the comments are filled with people calling them imposters, phony, and living in a nice neighborhood. And honestly, from a visual perspective, they're not wrong, but in reality, it's far from the truth. And you'll see why later in the video. But in the meantime, we head to a different part of Fresno. We drive up Highway 41 and head to the Pinedale neighborhood. This is where the Northside Bulldogs are known to hang out. Well, in 2014, a new group began to form in the Northside area. A group of guys from a country called Laos. This is a small country located in between Vietnam and Thailand. And back in the day, it was known for some of the toughest men on the planet. Well, the Northside Bulldogs did not like them moving into their area, and this caused an instant rivalry. So a Pinedale Bulldog named Jeremy Chacon decided to do some research into where exactly they live. And once he found 3 of their houses, he decided to go on a mission. July 6, 2015. Jeremy drives to 60 West Beechwood Avenue. Bam. Then he drives to 300 West Pinedale. Bam. And finally he heads to 300 West Fur Drive. Bam. Chacon was sending a message to the Laos Bloods, but 2 days later it would cost him. His license plates were tracked from surveillance footage. Well, the Laos men did not leave Fresno. Instead, they got ready for action. Specifically a man named Kamprasong Tamavong. And I mean, look at the guy, wow. How much do you want to bet that he doesn't own a single Gucci item, nor has he been to a Gucci store? Well, let me chill out, because I don't want any problems with this guy. On March 7th, 2016, he was pulled over and arrested for having all kinds of things you can legally have in 48 states. But definitely not California, so he received a large sentence. And to this day, the Laos and Bulldog rivalry is still going on. But for now, let's head back down to the south side of Fresno. Over the next few years, the Bond Street vs. Kawa rivalry got even worse. But all of this was being orchestrated from within the facility, specifically Big Paya. And that takes us to July 9th, 2021. A group of Kalwa and College Ave Bulldogs get together and look for a 52-year-old named Javier Fernandez. They drive down to his address in the Malaga neighborhood, and there he is sitting outside his home. Bam! After this incident, Fresno police began wiretapping the Bulldogs and getting all of their evidence together. And on October 7th, 2021, they announced the Kawa sweep. 14 Bulldogs were officially arrested, one of which was Big Paya, who they say orchestrated the events on July 9th. So now he's looking at another 85 years. And a few College Ave members who were seen in the Faye300 vlog went down as well. One specifically is his brother Romeo Tobias. Another one is seen in the vlog as well. So all that talk about imposters, leave it alone, because these guys were not lying about anything. And for those of you who think Fresno was a joke, think twice, because this is only half of what's going on. Another giant sweep happened on April 15th, but it's involving a whole different set of rivalries. So that's gonna do it for this episode of Swamp Stories. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new. Peace!